Good evening, Kyle, and welcome to Spooksies. Today's story will be The Haunting of Loon Lake Cemetery by Dennis Waskell and Michelle Waskell from Ghostly Encounters. Mary Jane Twilliger was born on January 5th, 1862, in Border Plains, Iowa. She was the eighth and last child of John and Phoebe Twirliger. John and Phoebe lived long lives, according to her obituary, published in the Spirit Lake Beacon on March 3rd, 1908. Phoebe was born in North Carolina, 1816, and married John Twirliger in Illinois, 1848. John and Phoebe moved to Ohio and lived there for a little more than 3 years. The couple's final move was to Minnesota Township, on the southern border of Minnesota, where they remained as farmers until John's death on September 7th, 1905, at the extraordinary age of 101. John was buried at Loon Lake Cemetery. A compassionate obituary published in the Spirit Lake Beacon on September 15, 1905, refers to him as Grandpa Twirliger and states, "Peace to the spirit of a worthy pioneer." Almost a year after John's death, Phoebe went to visit her sons in Idaho for what turned out to be an extended and final stay. Although Idaho agreed with Phoebe, who improved in health and weight, she caught a cold in February 1908 and developed into pneumonia and resulted in her death on February 26, at the most extraordinary age of 92. Phoebe's remains were returned to Minnesota, where her funeral was held on March 4th, following her burial beside her husband. By the time John and Phoebe were interred at Loon Lake Cemetery, their youngest child, Mary Jane, had been buried in the same ground for more than 25 years. Unlike her parents, Mary Jane did not enjoy a long life. She died on March 5th, 1880, at the age 17. Circumstances of Mary Jane's death have been told and retold by generations of people, published in books and propagated by the media, especially via the internet. Hers is a tale of two accounts. First, however, we must fast forward in history a good 125 years. Loon Lake Cemetery is currently regarded as one of the premier paranormal hotspots in its region. As recently as October 2012, CBS News of Minnesota listed the cemetery as one of 4 best burial grounds to visit for a real scare from beyond the grave. The cemetery is also identified in Mark Moran and Mark Skurman's book, Weird U.S., in which one local resident is quoted as saying, "It seems like everyone in this part of Tennessee state knows about it, goes there at least once while growing up. It's given me more sleepless nights than I can care to admit. I've had too many stories and been frightened personally too many times because of it. I will never go there again." There are numerous apparent reasons for Loon Lake Cemetery's eerie reputation, one being its shadowy antiquity. The cemetery was established in 1876 and includes at least 100 known interments. Some of the eternal residents of Loon Lake died before 1876, were originally buried on private property, and were relocated to the cemetery after its establishment. There are no official records for at least 10% of the buried. Abandonment also contributes to its mysterious nature. The cemetery was once owned and maintained by a Methodist church, was orphaned long ago when the church burned to the ground. As the legend holds, Mary Jane Twirliger, believed to be a witch, was beheaded in March 1880 by the citizens of nearby Petersburg, Minnesota. While the legendary execution is consistent with Mary Jane's official date of death, the accounts do not specify where the alleged execution took place, although many versions claim that she is buried with the axe that severed her head. Some accounts claim that Mary Jane was not alone in her dealings with the occult, that, in fact, she was a part of a coven of witches whom the locals rarely tolerated until their witchery started causing trouble and terrorizing the non-witch townfolk. Quoted in Morin and Skirman's book. Hence, in this version of the legend, 2 other witches were also hunted down and similarly beheaded. The witches were buried out in Loon Lake because it was desolate and used mainly to bury orphans. In other words, these witches would be out in the middle of nowhere, not buried in with God-fearing Christians. Also from Mormon's and Screwman's book. Indeed, people in the region often refer to Loon Lake Cemetery simply as the witch's graveyard. As the only witch consistently named, Mary Jane Twirliger is the primary focus of the legend. And with that, our story comes to an end. Join us next time to hear another amazing story. Got a spooky, scary story of your own? Be sure to leave it down in the comment section below, and it may be read. Until next time.